Let's talk to Francis Hoar first. He's a public law barrister. He's acted for Simon Dolan and others in challenging lockdown measures in the courts, sadly to no avail. But he joins us. Good morning to you, Francis.
Good morning, Julia.
Your feelings today after that, expected news from Boris Johnson yesterday?
Not surprised. I think this is a continuation of the government's attempts to make this extraordinary, unprecedented and undemocratic means of controlling people the normality. And that's the most concerning thing. You've just heard from the Federation of Small Businesses, businesses that have planned for this opening for months, larger businesses that can only operate without social distancing and without controls on numbers. For example, wedding companies such as one of my clients last year are going to be devastated by this. But that is one only of the really serious consequences. The main problem, in my view, is that the whole point of this is to normalise the idea that these regulations are a part of the way in which the government must operate. And you hear ministers talking about, we must do this. We must do this because otherwise we will have to lock down. No, that is a choice. It is a choice by ministers, and it is a choice because Dominic Raab, he started this with a 5 tests back in April last year. He put 5 tests, all relating to the virus, above every other consideration. That is an unprecedented and unprecedentedly stupid and dangerous thing to do.
And this is the thing. I hear this, and I hear this in other media commentators as well. If I see one more BBC or Sky reporter or presenter saying, well, yes, but if we don't do this, then we'll be forced into another lockdown. Of course, no one's forcing anyone to do anything other than, of course, Boris Johnson looking like he's a hostage giving a ransom video when he's got Whitty and Valance by his side, which I think is the situation we're in. It is always a political choice. It's no longer science. It's no longer data. It is a political choice. And a lot of this is down to the fact that the public supports this. The public thinks the borders should have been shut the whole time round. The public thinks that people shouldn't go to the pub. The public thinks that everyone but themselves is totally incapable of exercising common sense. Polling is really clear. People think that they, when they break any of the rules, and so many people are breaking the rules, who are we kidding? It's because they're making a common sense decision and being careful. But everyone else is a COVID idiot. And this is the trouble, isn't it? And with these adverts telling people how dangerous it is out there, paid for by the government, a £300 million contract, it's no wonder that so many people are still so fearful. How do we deal with that, though?
It's extremely difficult if the government has such a monopoly over the press. It's not only that the press buys into this narrative. The broadcast media is regulated by Ofcom, which actually regulates against anyone challenging the government's public policy advice. And that's incredibly dangerous. It's Galileo, or rather the Pope, who silenced Galileo territory. Because science is not about the science. It is about experimentation. It is about argument. It is about innovative ideas. And if you cannot debate those, how on earth can you come to a scientific synthesis? Because, of course, you have the Hegelian dialectic. You have thesis, antithesis, that is the argument against it, and synthesis. That is what science is all about. That is what politics is all about. Politics and science thrusts upon the freedom of ideas. And what we've seen is the government have bought the media. They bought it through advertising. They bought it through the fact that they can't sell newspapers to individuals when we're in lockdown. So they rely on the internet and they rely on advertising. And the government has the monopoly on that. And of course, they've crippled businesses, so they can't afford advertising. And some businesses have even bought into this propaganda, so they put their own COVID advertising by saying, we are making you safe by doing X, Y, and Z. And of course, the vast majority of people in this country are always and have always been safe from this disease.
Well, no, I mean, people will catch the disease is infectious. The reality is, though, the average age of death is 82. The biggest risk is to people through age or people who are health. Their health means that they are vulnerable. But the vast majority of healthy people under the age of 60 are incredibly safe from this disease.
And the first year of this, the number of people without pre-existing conditions serious enough to be put on the death certificate was only about 300, and it's only about 600 or so in 2 seasons of respiratory deaths and respiratory viruses. And so the idea that the whole healthy population needs to be locked down is one wholly without precedent. And you said about why are people saying this? Why are people thinking that we have to do this? If people went back to January 2019, and they were told that you have to be locked in your houses, and entire areas of businesses have to be closed in order to deal with a respiratory virus with an average age of 82, they would have been appalled. And it's notable that Neil Ferguson said exactly this. He said, it is extraordinary that China's been able to get away with this, and then Italy was able to get away with this. How exciting. Because, of course, Neil Ferguson is, by definition, a totalitarian. Yeah. And these are totalitarian.
They are. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, just finally, I could talk to you for hours, but this is the thing. We talk a lot about the economic hit and the mental health hit and also the hit, all the people missing operations, the NHS and cancer care and all of those things. But as vital and crucial as those things are, for me, fundamentally, it's the damage to our democracy. It's the damage to our fundamental freedoms, to the soul of this nation, to the heart of sort of democratic principles of freedom, and our relationship with the state and the right of the state to decide what we can and can't do to keep us safe, as opposed to keeping other people safe, and the level of risk that we are allowed to choose for ourselves. Those are such fundamental things. And I wonder, even when we've got a lot of our freedoms back, and even though they're unlocked, we're no longer in our houses 23 hours a day, and you can go to the pub, and you're allowed to go to the football and have a wedding again, lucky us. But even after all of those things are back, I wonder how much damage that ongoing damage is going to have been done.
Well, of course, that won't be freedom. It will be license. And when people are grateful to the state for allowing them to do something, it is just license. Ronald Reagan said famously that it can take only a generation to lose liberty. Well, it seems like in this country it's taken only 15 months. We have normalised the idea that the government can define what we can do, that we must be grateful to the government for deciding on the basis of one virus, not dangerous to the vast majority of the people. It can determine who we associate with, who we can allow into our houses, whether we can go to the pub, whether we can have a wedding, whether we can dance with people at weddings, whether we can go outside or inside without a mask that, of course, does very little, if anything, to counteract the spread. It's anti-science, it's anti-democratic, it's illiberal, it's against the rule of law, and it shows that this society has gone on a downward pace. And I really fear for the future, for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. This is our heritage to them. We are entrusted with protecting their liberties. We have failed, and shame on us for that.
Francis Hoar, there'll be people cheering, listening to that. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Francis Hoar, public law barrister.